I knew something was wrong the second the sound hit the valley. Not birds, not water. Diesel engines, low, angry, and deliberate, rolling down Willow Bend Road like they owned it. I stepped outside just as 3 massive dump trucks came to a stop at the edge of my land, their frames shuddering under their own weight. And there she was, Karen Whitlock, HOA head of Creekstone Ridge. Phone held up, already recording. Already smiling like she'd won. She didn't even look at me when she said it. Let's see if this old junk is really safe. She meant my bridge, a hand-laid stone arch my great-grandfather built in 1897, the only way in or out of my property, a bridge that had survived floods, freezes, and more than a century of time doing its worst. Karen thought paperwork made her powerful. She thought fines and threats could rewrite reality. She thought 3 dump trucks would expose a weakness that wasn't there. What she didn't know was that I spent my life designing bridges where mistakes killed people. And what she definitely didn't understand was that physics doesn't care about HOA authority. If you want to hear more true stories like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button to HOA Gone Wild and tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? I came back to this land because I didn't know where else to go. After my wife, Elaine Mercer, passed away, the house we shared felt too quiet, like every room was holding its breath. Friends kept telling me to sell, to downsize, to start fresh. But fresh didn't feel right. I needed something solid, something that didn't disappear overnight. So I returned to the property my family had held onto for generations, tucked along a slow bend of the creek. The bridge was the first thing I saw when I arrived. It always was. A stone arch, hand-laid by my great-grandfather in 1897, back when this place was nothing but timber, water, and patience. He built it to last, not to impress. No shortcuts, no decorative nonsense. Just stone, weight, and time-tested sense. That bridge wasn't just how you got onto the land. It was proof that some things were built with care instead of convenience. I crossed it every morning with a cup of coffee and every night when the sun dropped low over the water. After Elaine died, it became a ritual. One solid thing in a life that suddenly felt like it could crack at any moment. Creekstone Ridge came later, much later. What used to be rolling pasture turned into identical houses and identical mailboxes, all squeezed into neat rows with a wooden sign out front announcing the Homeowners Association like it was a badge of honor. I didn't think much of it at first. They weren't on my land. They didn't pay my taxes. I figured we'd leave each other alone. That was before Karen Whitlock noticed me. She showed up one afternoon in a spotless SUV, heels clicking on gravel like she was inspecting a crime scene. She introduced herself as the HOA head, smiled too hard, and looked at my bridge the way people look at something they've already decided to hate. At the time, I didn't realize she'd been running Creekstone Ridge for 8 years, former real estate agent. Big on buzzwords, bigger on control. Everything she said came wrapped in phrases like community standards and visual harmony, as if those words gave her ownership over anything she pointed at. The first notice arrived a week later. Structural safety concern. No inspection. No report. Just a letter saying my bridge posed a potential risk to the community. I responded calmly, attaching county approvals, engineering assessments, and a historic designation request that had been pending for years. Karen sent another letter. Visual noncompliance. Apparently the stone didn't match neighborhood aesthetics. I replied again, this time including photographs, material analyses, and documentation proving the bridge predated the HOA by nearly a century. Then came the third notice, emergency access obstruction. That one made me laugh out loud. Emergency vehicles had been using that bridge longer than Karen had been alive. I sent more paperwork, more records, more proof. None of it mattered. Karen never addressed a single document I sent. She didn't argue the facts. She just escalated. Fines appeared out of nowhere. Deadlines shortened. The language in her letters shifted from concern to threat. At first, I assumed it was ignorance, then ego. But the longer it went on, the clearer it became that this wasn't about safety, or looks, or access. It was about obedience. Karen didn't want the bridge repaired or reviewed. She wanted it gone. And more than that, she wanted me to be the one who folded. To admit that her clipboard carried more weight than a century of stone and experience. I'd spent my career designing bridges in places where failure meant lives lost. I knew exactly what my bridge could handle. Karen didn't care. To her, authority wasn't earned by understanding. It was enforced by pressure. Standing there on my land, reading yet another notice that ignored everything I'd proven, I finally understood the real problem. Karen wasn't protecting the community. She was testing how far she could push someone who refused to bow. The tone of the letters changed almost overnight. What started as polite concern turned sharp and legal, like someone realized kindness wasn't going to get the result they wanted. Certified envelopes began showing up in my mailbox every few days, thick with paper and heavy with threats. Each one carried a new fine. Each one used stronger language than the last. Failure to comply will result in forced remediation. That phrase showed up everywhere, bolded, underlined, repeated like a drumbeat. Karen claimed my bridge posed a liability risk to the entire community. She wrote that its age alone made it unsafe, that if anything happened, the HOA could be held responsible. It was absurd. The bridge didn't serve the HOA. It didn't sit on HOA land. It had nothing to do with Creekstone Ridge at all. But logic wasn't part of the strategy anymore. The fines stacked up fast. Landscaping violations I'd never heard of. Safety assessments that had never been performed. Administrative fees for non-cooperation. The numbers weren't designed to bankrupt me, at least not yet. They were designed to exhaust me, to make me feel watched, pressured, alone. I tried to meet her halfway. I emailed Karen and asked for a sit-down. Neutral ground, no lawyers. Just a conversation. I even offered to bring in a county engineer at my own expense, someone independent who could review the bridge and put the issue to rest. Her response was 3 lines long. The board has already made its determination. Further discussion is unnecessary. Compliance is expected. That was it. No meeting. No review. No inspection. Just obedience. I called the HOA office next, left a calm voicemail, explained that I had decades of experience designing bridges and that I was willing to walk anyone through the structure, stone by stone. No one called me back. Instead, another letter arrived. This one included a deadline. If I failed to address the hazard by the end of the month, the HOA reserved the right to take corrective action on my behalf and bill me for the costs. Corrective action. That's when the word intimidation finally stopped feeling abstract. I started noticing small changes around the neighborhood. Cars slowing down as they passed my gate. People I didn't recognize taking photos from the road. Once, I found a small orange flag planted near the edge of the bridge, the kind surveyors use. No explanation. No notice. Just a marker. The pressure wasn't loud. It was constant. The kind that seeps in when you're already tired, already grieving, already trying to hold on to something familiar in a life that had lost its center. I might have started doubting myself if it weren't for Mabel Cross. Mabel had lived on the far side of the creek longer than anyone else. She was the kind of neighbor people overlooked. Quiet, older, always tending her garden. She'd watched Creekstone Ridge rise from nothing and had never trusted it. One evening, she walked up my drive just before sunset, hands folded tight around a paper grocery bag. She didn't waste time with small talk. "You need to be careful," she said. I asked her why. She leaned in a little closer and lowered her voice. Karen's been asking questions. Not about safety, about weight. That got my attention. Mabel told me Karen had stopped by her place earlier that week, smiling and polite, asking about the creek bed, about how soft the soil got after heavy rain, about whether large trucks had ever crossed near my property before. She asked about load limits, Mabel said, about access points, about where heavy equipment could turn around. None of that had anything to do with inspections. That was logistics. As Mabel spoke, the pieces started sliding into place. The survey flag, the deadlines, the sudden urgency. Karen wasn't trying to prove the bridge was unsafe. She was trying to make it fail. Not with facts, not with engineers, but with force. The realization settled in my chest like a weight. This wasn't just paperwork anymore. This was escalation. The kind that hides behind letterhead and legal phrasing while quietly preparing something much uglier. Karen didn't want compliance. She wanted a spectacle. She wanted to push the situation past the point where reason mattered, past the point where I could argue with documents and experience. She was betting that pressure would make me cave before anyone noticed how reckless she was becoming. Standing there with Mabel as the sun dipped behind the trees, I finally understood what I was up against. This wasn't an HOA enforcing rules. This was a person using authority as a weapon, confident that no one would stop her until something broke. And if I didn't prepare myself now, she was going to make sure that something was my bridge. The morning air smells faintly of diesel and dust, sharp against the calm hum of the creek below. I watch from the edge of my property as Karen strides toward the trucks, clipboard in hand, acting like she's in command of a battlefield. Dump trucks line up, engines idling, tires crunching over gravel. A concrete mixer spins lazily nearby, its drum rotating like some mechanical predator. And then there's the rented crane, looming over everything like a crooked sentinel, its hook swaying in the slight breeze. Karen's smile is thin, tight, too practiced. She calls this an emergency load test, claiming she's worried about safety. But I've seen this before. Her idea of safety is a theater, a mask for destruction. She wants to break the bridge, make me look reckless, make the HOA look justified. I step forward. Calm but firm. You're standing on soft soil. That road you built won't support these trucks, I say. I point to the creek, side embankment, soft, uneven, barely holding itself together. My bridge is anchored in solid bedrock. There's no contest. Karen laughs, a sound meant to unsettle. Let's see then. She snaps at the first truck. The driver hesitates, then slowly rumbles forward. Tires crunch against the surface. Dust puffs. And nothing. The bridge holds solid, unyielding, like it was built by the hands of giants. Not a shiver, not a sigh from the beams. Karen's face shifts subtly, almost imperceptibly, as her confidence wavers. She signals the next truck. This one's heavier, laden with gravel. Its mass should make the structure tremble, but the bridge stands as if mocking her. Meanwhile, the HOA's road isn't so lucky. The soft soil protests immediately, cracking and sinking under the weight. Gravel shifts. Small clouds of dust rise from the edges as the surface groans audibly. The driver jerks the wheel, trying to steady the vehicle. But the road seems to resist. Karen's composure cracks a fraction. Her clipboard shakes in her hands as she mutters orders to the crane operator, desperate for some sign of success. She wants the bridge to fail, but the universe refuses her. I watch silently, letting the scene unfold. There's a lesson in letting people overextend themselves. Authority can look commanding, but when it's built on weakness, it collapses under its own weight. The crane swings into position now, massive arm arching overhead, cables rattling. Its hook hovers above the first truck, ready to add pressure or lift. Karen's eyes glitter with impatience. Do it, she demands, voice sharp. The operator hesitates, reading my steady gaze. I don't flinch. He gives a subtle shake of his head. He knows as well as I do that my bridge was built with foresight. He lowers the crane, letting the load hang lightly over the truck, adding tension without danger. Karen stomps her foot. "Move the crane closer!" Apply more weight. The second truck, already groaning the ground beneath it, slides slightly as the soil gives under pressure. Gravel cracks. Dust puffs up in small explosions. Karen's excitement grows. She thinks victory is near. She doesn't notice the ironic symmetry. The very road she insists is safe is crumbling while my bridge remains untouched. I step closer to the bridge, feeling the solid vibrations beneath my feet. The wood is warm from sunlight. The metal joints cold but unyielding. I trace the lines in my mind. Timbers anchored deep, bolts drilled into bedrock. Supports tested under conditions no HOA handbook could predict. Every inch speaks of patience, of care, of engineering that respects nature rather than forcing it. Karen signals for a dump truck filled with concrete, aiming to pour weight onto the bridge itself. The operator hesitates, clearly aware that the bridge will survive. Karen frowns, barking instructions to override caution, but her words float in the air. They have no power over the structure itself. The truck inches forward, wheels crunching. Concrete pours into the bed, settling with a heavy thud. I count the seconds as the weight spreads. Nothing, absolutely nothing. Not a tremor, not a flex, not even the faintest moan of protest from the beams. Karen's face flushes, a mix of fury and disbelief. She looks around, hoping someone will back her, but her crew's expressions are a mixture of awe and hesitation. Even they can see it. The bridge refuses to yield. I take a deep breath. Maybe it's time to reconsider what you call an emergency, I say, voice calm but carrying through the hum of engines and gravel. The bridge isn't going to fail because you want it to. But the road you built, that's another story. The final dump truck begins to move onto the HO road. Its wheels sink into the soft soil immediately. Tires churning mud and gravel. Dust and dirt fly. The road groans like a wounded animal. Karen yells, red-faced, but it's too late. The damage is evident. She's trapped in her own scheme. I watch as chaos unfolds. Truck stuck, soil cracked, dust swirling, and Karen pacing in frustration. Meanwhile, my bridge, my creation, stands serene and unyielding. Not a single joint complains. Not a single plank bends. In that moment, it's clear, authority without knowledge is meaningless. Aggression without preparation is destructive to the aggressor. And patience, precision, and respect for reality, these are the true powers. Karen storms off, muttering threats, but her plans are already crumbling. Her attempt to intimidate, to force failure, has revealed the truth. Instead, my bridge isn't just strong, it's untouchable. And the HOA's own negligence is written clearly in the dirt beneath her feet. As the road groans under weight it was never meant to bear. I step back, letting the dust settle. Sunlight glints off the bridge's surface. Everything is exactly as it should be. Nothing needs fixing. Nothing needs proving. And yet everything tells a story. The trucks remain stranded and frustrated. Karen's authority, once so loudly asserted, is now a weak echo in the dust. My bridge stands silent, commanding, unshaken. And the lesson: power alone doesn't build strength. Knowledge, preparation, and patience do. Karen's spectacle failed, but my bridge, it delivered in silence the final verdict. The asphalt begins to betray itself almost immediately. Tiny hairline cracks zigzag across the surface, like veins on paper, each one whispering that something is very, very wrong. Beneath the road, the soil shifts subtly at first, a slow, almost imperceptible sigh, then faster, hiving in little waves that make tires wobble. Drivers glance nervously at the horizon, then at each other. Engines idle. A few shake their heads and refuse to continue. Karen's voice pierces the tension, sharp and frantic. "Keep going. "Do your job," she yells, waving her arms like a conductor desperate to salvage a performance. Her composure is unraveling. Her fury is palpable, but so is the underlying panic. She knows, deep down, that this spectacle is slipping from her control. From the edge of the chaos, Harold Vance steps forward. His gait is measured, almost casual, but there's a weight to his presence. Retired county surveyor, decades of experience reading land, soil, and structural patterns. But more than that, an old friend of my family. He scans the scene, eyes narrowing at the cracks and shifts. "I've been tracking some of the missing HOA funds," he says quietly as he joins me, voice low but urgent. "And those emergency permits they claimed were filed. Fake, completely fabricated." His words hang in the air, carrying more impact than any shouted order from Karen. We exchange a glance, understanding immediately the bridge isn't their true target. It's never been about testing engineering limits. It's a blockade, a roadblock to something else. Something bigger, something profitable for the HOA. Karen wants the bridge gone so that a commercial access route along the creek can move forward. Every reckless truck, every attempt to force a failure, was just a distraction, a way to intimidate and create leverage. The realization reframes the entire conflict. This isn't just a feud over property lines or authority. It's about money, manipulation, and corruption hiding behind official documents. The bridge was never the obstacle in their minds. It was the witness, standing firm, refusing to yield. Drivers continue to hesitate, their instincts refusing to challenge physics. Some climb out of their trucks, hands on hips, shaking their heads. The road heaves slightly beneath their weight, a physical protest that can't be ignored. Dust puffs from minor soil collapses, curling into the sunlight. Karen stomps forward, her authority collapsing under the weight of evidence that even she cannot entirely control. Harold crouches at the edge of the bridge, tapping on the abutment and listening, murmuring numbers and calculations to himself. He moves with a quiet certainty, the kind that comes from decades of reading terrain and structures that refuse to bend. He whispers, "Your bridge is anchored in reality. Everything they're trying is just theatrics against something already immutable." I feel a surge of clarity. Every truck, every crane, every desperate shout from Karen has inadvertently demonstrated the truth. The laws of physics favor preparation and respect, not shortcuts and intimidation. The soft soil beneath the HOA's road cannot hide its weakness. Every crack, every tremor, every reluctant engine stall becomes proof that her strategy is collapsing. Karen's panic escalates. She pulls out her phone, calling higher-ups, demanding immediate reinforcement. But even her allies on the other end hesitate. Reports of shifting soil, cracking asphalt, and stalled trucks travel quickly. The facade of authority begins to crumble. Meanwhile, Harold digs deeper into his investigation. He points out anomalies in permits, misallocated funds, and falsified signatures. Each revelation aligns with what we're witnessing physically. The bridge itself was never at risk, but the route Karen and the HOA planned, built on shortcuts, fraud, and soft ground, is failing spectacularly under pressure. It's a rare, almost poetic alignment. The natural world, engineering integrity, and hard evidence are conspiring against her scheme. Physics itself takes sides. The bridge, anchored firmly, remains untouched. The road, hastily built and padded with lies, gives way. I watch Karen's fury twist into desperation. Trucks are abandoned, crews mutter curses, and even the crane operator looks like he's questioning his career choices. She storms back and forth, issuing orders, but the results are predictable. Each attempt to push forward is met with resistance from the ground itself. I take a moment to absorb it. The bridge isn't just a structure, it's a statement. Each solid timber, each unyielding beam, each precise bolt communicates a truth that no amount of authority or aggression can overturn. Meanwhile, the HOA's shortcuts, corruption, and unchecked ambition are exposed in real time as the land itself refuses to cooperate. Harold nods subtly at me. They underestimated reality, he says, and reality doesn't negotiate. It just exists, and it has rules. I can feel the shift in power. Karen's spectacle has failed because she tried to impose force on systems that won't bend to her will. The drivers, Harold, and even the land itself are allies in exposing the HOA's overreach. What began as a simple engineering challenge has transformed into a revelation of integrity versus manipulation. The road groans again, a deep, rattling complaint. Dust rises from a collapsing section. A truck wheels back, its engine stalling. Karen screams orders, but the physics of the situation drown her authority. And standing above it all, the bridge remains calm, firm, and untouchable. This part of the conflict reshapes everything. The battle isn't just about who can bully whom. It's about foresight, ethics, and respect for both nature and law. Physics has taken sides, revealing where preparation triumphs over hubris and showing clearly where corruption and shortcuts crumble under their own weight. By the time the dust settles, Karen is frantic, her authority hollow, her plan exposed. Drivers retreat, trucks are left half embedded in soft soil, and the bridge, my bridge, stands untouchable, a monument to knowledge, patience, and integrity. Everything we feared might be tested has passed the test. Everything they hoped would crumble has proven weak. And in this alignment of science, observation, and justice, the stakes are crystal clear. Shortcuts fail, deception fails, and integrity, quiet, unshakable integrity, prevails. The morning sun glints off steel and dust as Karen's desperation becomes impossible to ignore. She's doubled down, mortgaging her own home to rent heavier equipment, bigger trucks, more machines than anyone could imagine for what she calls an emergency operation. Contractors come and go, shaking their heads, refusing to step onto the shifting asphalt or near the unstable soil. They whisper warnings to one another, eyes wide, but Karen doesn't listen. She sees only victory, or at least the illusion of it. And then she does the unthinkable. I watch, frozen for a moment, as Karen climbs into the cab of a fully loaded concrete truck herself. No training, no permit, no plan beyond sheer ego and panic. Her hands grip the wheel like a lifeline. Her hard hat sits crooked, a small, ridiculous crown for the chaos she's about to unleash. The truck's engine roars to life, a low, guttural growl that vibrates through the ground. Tires crunch gravel, gravel slips into soft soil, dust erupts into the air. I start recording everything. Video, audio, the tiniest details, because this isn't just about the bridge anymore. This is evidence, proof. Every reckless decision is being captured. The first roll forward is terrifying. The truck lurches as it meets uneven terrain. The soft asphalt groans. Concrete shifts in the bed, metal rattles against steel. The sound is almost alive, a warning that nature itself refuses compliance. Karen yells over the engine, furious and defiant, but the machine answers only to gravity, friction, and the imperfections of the soil beneath it. County officials arrive, their uniforms crisp, their expressions a mixture of disbelief and alarm. They immediately start coordinating traffic, checking permits, and demanding she step out. But Karen is locked into her own frenzy. Her face is red, sweat streaking dust and grime across her cheeks, her eyes wild. She thinks control is hers, but control is an illusion. The truck moves again, slowly but inevitably, the engine growling like a caged beast. I keep filming, noting every wobble, every crack in the asphalt, every subtle tilt of the crane overhead. Physics is now an unforgiving judge. Impartial and merciless, it doesn't care who's right or wrong, only who is prepared. The crew surrounding the scene hesitates. Some shout instructions, others freeze, unwilling to step closer. Karen slams the wheel, overcorrecting, and the truck fishtails slightly, dust spirals. Tires dig into soft soil, grinding it into submission, cracking it further. Every inch forward is a battle between human arrogance and natural law. Harold, standing a few feet away, mutters numbers under his breath, shaking his head. "She has no idea what she's doing," he says quietly, almost to himself. "And she's lucky no one's been seriously hurt yet." The tension is unbearable. Trucks lined up, equipment at the ready, dust and gravel everywhere. Karen screaming into the roaring engine. Her panic feeds the spectacle, and everyone watching knows it. Even the most hardened contractors exchange glances, realizing that authority without knowledge is nothing more than a dangerous theater. The bridge, of course, remains untouched. Its beams absorb no strain. Its anchors grip bedrock with unyielding certainty, but the road, the one Karen hopes to exploit, creaks, bends, and caves slightly under the weight of her reckless performance. Tires dig holes, gravel shifts, the earth complains, and it's terrifyingly audible. County officials move closer, radios in hand, voices sharp and commanding. "Step out of the vehicle," one shouts. But Karen is lost in the roar of the engine and her own fury. She jerks the wheel, trying to force the truck forward faster, but the machine refuses shortcuts, the ground refusing to cooperate. Every turn she attempts is met with resistance. Every command she issues to herself is ignored by physics. I keep filming, not out of fascination, but because this is the moment where consequences converge. Ego, desperation, and illegality meet immovable reality, and it's spectacular. Dust swirls, engines groan, gravel explodes from shifting soil, and Karen, helmet askew, face streaked with sweat and dirt, drives herself toward disaster. For a heartbeat, everything is chaos: the roaring engine, the groaning road, the yelling officials, the shifting trucks. And in the middle of it all, the bridge stands silent, calm, untouchable, a witness to competence, preparation, and foresight. Karen, by contrast, is a portrait of panic, ego, and recklessness. And then it happens, a subtle lurch. The truck's tires sink slightly deeper into the soft soil. Karen struggles, jerking the wheel violently. Dust erupts. Gravel slides. A crack snakes through the asphalt, a warning that physics is no longer tolerating her improvisation. I keep filming, documenting every reckless inch. Every word she shouts, every futile attempt to override natural law, every physical protest from the ground is evidence. This isn't just an escalating confrontation. It's a complete unraveling, a lesson written in steel, soil, and concrete. By the time she's forced to stop, hands trembling, face red and streaked with sweat, the scene is undeniable. The bridge is safe. The trucks are stalled. The soil and asphalt have spoken. County officials take over, securing the site. Karen steps out, breathing heavily, rage mingling with humiliation. Every person on site now understands the truth: authority without skill, ego without preparation, desperation without knowledge. These are powerless against physics and integrity. The scene settles slowly. Dust drifts down. Engines idle. Trucks sit immobile in the cracked road. And above it all, the bridge remains serene, untouchable, a monument to foresight and discipline, while Karen's reckless attempt has left chaos in its wake. The ground beneath the overloaded concrete truck gives way with a terrifying groan. Asphalt cracks and splinters, soil crumbling like dry sand, and the truck lurches violently before plunging into the creek bed below. The weight of the vehicle meets the soft mud, and it sinks almost comically, as if it were made of wet cardboard. Water splashes upward in chaotic arcs, mingling with concrete that sloshes and churns like liquid stone. The sound is deafening, metal scraping, engine roaring, mud collapsing, and every eye on the scene freezes. Sirens wail in the distance, growing louder by the second. The county deputies arrive, moving quickly through the mud and debris. Cameras click, phones record. The spectacle is impossible to ignore. Through the chaos, I keep filming, capturing every detail: the sinking truck, the water rushing around it, the crushed pride on Karen's face. And then I notice it, almost in disbelief, the bridge. Not a tremor, not a crack, not a single plank out of place. Its beams remain firm, anchored deep in bedrock, holding steady as if mocking the chaos below. Every attempt Karen made, every reckless move, every ounce of her ego, fueled panic has been absorbed by the ground she misjudged, while the structure I built endures untouched. Karen herself is pulled from the cab, soaked in sputtering helmet askew, mascara streaked down her face from tears or sweat, or both. She screams, the sound piercing and frantic. "Lawsuits! You'll pay! This isn't over!" But deputies remain unshaken. One hand on her arm, another on her shoulder. They lead her away with practiced efficiency. Reckless endangerment, misuse of HOA funds, public spectacle. Every infraction is visible now, undeniable, and the law catches up with her as effortlessly as gravity did. Local media begins to arrive, lights flashing and cameras rolling. Reporters crowd the edges of the mud, slick road, interviewing deputies, neighbors, and stunned contractors. Footage spreads almost immediately, online streams going live, clips circulating faster than anyone could have anticipated. The narrative writes itself. A bridge designed with care stands firm while hubris collapses under its own weight. Authority defeated by reality. I stand a few feet away. Dust and water dripping from my boots, camera still rolling. The bridge remains silent but eloquent, a monument to preparation and integrity. The creek, once a passive observer, now swirls with the evidence of Karen's failed spectacle. Muddy water, concrete slurry, and a truck submerged to its cab. Contractors who refused to touch the site earlier nod quietly among themselves, acknowledging the obvious. The drivers, covered in splashes of water and mud, exchange incredulous looks. Even the deputies, seasoned and hardened by years on the road, shake their heads slightly at the absurdity. Nature and physics have aligned perfectly, delivering poetic justice that no bureaucratic order or board meeting could achieve. Karen's screams fade as she's led away, replaced by the hum of engines idling, cameras clicking, and murmurs from the crowd. Every inch of the road that once seemed imposing now lies in ruin, cracked asphalt, sinking mud, waterlogged earth, while my bridge continues to rise above it all, untouched, untouchable. I take a deep breath, feeling the tension drain from the air. The spectacle is over. Every reckless maneuver, every attempt to intimidate or manipulate has failed. The authorities, media, and onlookers have seen exactly what happens when ego, panic, and deceit collide with physics, integrity, and preparation. The scene settles slowly. Mud slides back into the creek, water splashes less violently, and the wrecked truck sits as a stark monument to hubris. Karen, furious and humiliated, disappears into the custody vehicle, her authority dissolved in the most visible and dramatic way possible. I turn to the bridge once more, letting my eyes trace its beams and joints, feeling a quiet satisfaction. It didn't require shouting, confrontation, or chaos to prove its strength. It stood firm, letting reality speak louder than any courtroom or board meeting ever could. The collapse below is as much a victory for planning and foresight as it is a warning for anyone who underestimates the consequences of reckless ambition. And in that moment, the story is clear. Arrogance may demand spectacle, but truth and physics always delivers justice. Karen sits stiffly in the courtroom, her defiance reduced to a tight-lipped stare. The weight of evidence is impossible to deny. She pleads guilty to multiple charges: financial misconduct, unauthorized construction, and reckless endangerment of the public. Every document, every video, every witness from the creek side fiasco lines up like a string of indisputable truth. The courtroom hums with the quiet satisfaction of order restored. Outside, the fallout spreads like wildfire. The proposed development deal collapses under the scrutiny of environmental regulators. Permits are revoked, contracts voided, What had been pitched as a lucrative expansion along the creek is now a cautionary tale of oversight, greed, and overreach. Karen's dream of commercial access ends, not in a boardroom negotiation but in legal failure. The HOA board, once complicit and complacent, faces accountability. The members who stood silently while she orchestrated chaos are removed, their positions dissolved. A new board is appointed, vetted carefully, committed to transparency, integrity, and proper oversight. The community watches as leadership shifts from intimidation to responsibility. Meanwhile, my bridge, silent witness to the entire spectacle, receives recognition it deserves. Historic protection status is granted, ensuring that its legacy endures beyond this conflict. Every beam, every anchor, every meticulously calculated joint is preserved, a testament to planning, foresight, and respect for the land. The lessons are clear and public. Recklessness meets consequences. Authority that operates without accountability is temporary, fragile, and exposed by reality. Karen's collapse becomes a case study in what happens when ego, greed, and ignorance collide with laws, ethics, and physics. Neighbors, contractors, and onlookers reflect on the spectacle. The media coverage ensures the story is remembered, a bridge that stood firm while a flawed system crumbled, an individual who documented and preserved truth, and a community that learned, through chaos, the value of integrity. Even as life returns to normal, the aftermath is unmistakable. Safety protocols are reinforced. OA oversight becomes stricter. Mismanaged funds are returned or repurposed, and the creek side development that never was now serves as a preserved natural buffer, reminding everyone that shortcuts and corruption have real costs. Karen is left to reckon with her actions. Legal consequences, financial penalties, and public humiliation define her future. There is no dramatic escape, no loophole, no last-minute reprieve. Every choice that fueled her attempts to force failure now bears weight in law and public record. In the quiet of the aftermath, I walk across the bridge. Its boards feel solid beneath my feet. The creek flows calmly beneath, a soft murmur that contrasts with the chaos of weeks past. I can finally breathe. The bridge isn't just a structure, it's a symbol of foresight, integrity, and resilience. The community has seen both sides: what happens when authority is abused, and what happens when preparation, patience, and knowledge prevail. Karen's downfall and the protection of the bridge are more than a victory. They are a statement. The events show that consequences extend beyond personal triumph. They reshape systems, reinforce ethics, and preserve what truly matters. And as the sun glints off the bridge's beams, it's clear chaos may erupt, authority may be misused, but accountability endures, and integrity leaves a legacy that no amount of recklessness can erase. I stand at the edge of the creek, watching sunlight glint off the bridge's beams. Weeks of chaos and confrontation have passed, and yet the structure remains untouched, silent, steady, unyielding. It isn't just wood and steel anymore. It's endurance made tangible, patience proven, and the quiet reminder that authority has limits when reality refuses to bend. The creek has recovered, its water flowing clear over rocks, carrying away the traces of the trucks and chaos. The mud has settled, gravel is back in place. Life moves on, but the lessons remain. I have established a small local scholarship in Elaine's name for civil engineering students, honoring the people and skills that build things meant to last. The trucks are gone. Karen's attempts are a memory, but the bridge, my bridge, still stands, a testament to foresight, preparation, and respect for the laws of physics and ethics alike. Every plank, every bolt speaks of resilience. Every anchor sunk into bedrock whispers that some foundations cannot be shaken by fear, ego, or temporary power. Paperwork, threats, or shortcuts cannot replace knowledge, integrity, or careful planning. Some things, like the bridge, simply don't break. And that's the story I hope resonates: real strength isn't in asserting control, it's in building what endures. If you want to hear more true stories like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button to HOA Gone Wild. And tell me in the comments, where are you watching from?